23rd work session to order. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to address the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a man who truly embodied the core American values: free speech, bold ideas, and spirited debate. He believed that we are strongest as a nation when we discuss, disagree, and still treat each other with dignity. So I'd like to take this opportunity to be very clear. I have zero tolerance for political violence. It's an attack on the foundation of everything we hold dear: our freedom, our safety, and the integrity of public service. This is not about his ideologies, except for that of free speech. He was killed simply for speaking, for standing firm in what he believed, for being passionate about his convictions, and that should give us all pause. Because an assault on one voice is an assault on all of our voices. We have a responsibility, especially those of us who participate in politics, public debate, or community service, to uphold respect, to reject hate, and preserve the decorum of discourse. Disrespect is unbecoming. Violence is unacceptable, always. To honor Charlie Kirk, we will observe a moment of silence at the beginning of next month's council meeting. That being said, I will move to our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Thank you. I think we have Assistant Manager Jessica Roth for our manager's comments. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So we have a number of items on today's agenda. The first part of the agenda is our action items. We have the written decision for the East Indiana lot subdivision, which you approved at your September 9th meeting. We also have the National Register of Historic Places nomination. This is an application that's been submitted for Our Lady of Victory Parish, which we more commonly known as the DCC, the E.S. Douglas Community Center, as well as the Coalition property. You have an appointment to fill one vacancy on your planning board. We do have 2 applicants who have applied for that. Following that, you have 3 public hearings on today's agenda. The first is for a very small piece of land on Old US Highway 1. This is an annexation to bring in a portion of a parcel that's not in town limits. Your second public hearing is continued from earlier this month, and this has to do with the revised application requirements for planned developments. And then the third public hearing that we have today is related to the installment financing contract that we have submitted to the Local Government Commission in order to purchase the town hall facility at 300 Southwest Broad Street. Following the public hearings, we have several council updates and discussions. The first, we're going to talk to you about a request from the Sandhills Bogies baseball team to use Southern Pines Sports Park, and we do have Alec Allred with us today to talk to us about that request along with staff. We're going to talk to you about a request we've received from a property owner at 195 South Ridge Street to reduce the right-of-way that they have on East New York Avenue to install some gates across the driveways. Town Engineer James Mickle is going to update you on some potential regulatory changes related to stormwater that we see possibly impacting us next year. And then Planning Director BJ Grieve will end with the Planning Department update, and then we'll move into your council roundtable. Is there any questions on the agenda today?
Thank you, Ms. Roth. Okay. Do we need to, since we have public hearings, do we need to approve the agenda?
You can.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our action items. We have our written decision for East Indiana lot subdivision. Are there any questions or a motion on that written decision?
I just have one question. They have been notified. Asked and answered.
All right, very good. All right. If there are no others, is there a motion?
Go ahead.
I move to approve the written decision for East Indiana Lot Subdivision.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And was there something specific about the written decision that you?
No. I just think I need to be consistent. No problem with the written decision.
Okay. Okay. The National Register of Historic Places nomination, Our Lady of Victory Parish. Mr. Maddox?
All right. Good
Welcome.
afternoon, council. Thank you. Mason Maddox, planner 2 with the town. Just a little bit about this place, don't worry. Nothing too lengthy from the history side of things. I wanted to start with a quick update on the Underrepresented Communities Grant, if you would please, Director Grieve. It has 2 components. The first is to formally nominate 3 sites to the National Register of Historic Places, and the second component is to identify future sites to the National Register. This, as of today, will be wrapping up informally phase 1, if you will, with Our Lady of Victory. Next, please. And as a certified local government, I have pieced together this complex chart to show the process of nominating something to the National Register. It is your honor to have this designation as a certified local government. It was reviewed by the HDC at their meeting this previous month. There was no quorum, as I noted on the report, but the 3 members that were present did voice their support for the application. All right. Next, please. As Assistant Town Manager Jessica Roth pointed out, the site is currently known, well, the school site, rather, as the E.S. Douglas Community Center. Next, please. And we have the Coalition retail shops now in the Old Chapel, interestingly enough, and we'll keep going. Margaret Sullivan recognized the need for a place of worship for Black residents in Southern Pines, and so with the support of the Diocese of Raleigh, the first parish was founded under Father Charles Hannigan and built and consecrated in 1935. And there's a picture of the parish in the background. Next, please. The school itself was built in 1942 and staffed by the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. Community life around Our Lady of Victory extended far beyond just academics alone. Girls learned to sew, boys learned carpentry and metalwork, and students were involved in plays, which the community is reported to have enjoyed around every Thanksgiving each year. The sisters also made winter clothes for the students that were distributed at Christmas time every year. And the school's library was open to adults on Sunday afternoons for their enjoyment as well. Also, the parish priest made lemonade and sandwiches for students every day, which I thought was a nice touch. Next, please. Families of many denominations, at least 9 in the actual report, sent their children to Our Lady of Victory Catholic School because the education was exceptional, often putting 8th grade students graduating from Our Lady of Victory directly into 10th grade in the public school, skipping 9th grade altogether. Do we have any former students? I was looking for that today. I didn't know. I've heard that we have a few members of our community that were students. Yep. In 1961, the Bishop of Raleigh, Bishop Walters, had ordered that schools in the Diocese of Raleigh desegregate, and so Our Lady of Victory, upon merging with St. Anthony of Padua, was the first in Moore County to integrate. Keep going. Architecturally speaking, the 1935 chapel is the only shingle-style church in Southern Pines. The rectory was built in 1935, same year, also mirrors this design. And the school itself blends colonial revival features and a distinctive cross-shaped pattern from above. And next time you're in the main hallways, remember that I did not tell you on record to go and try to open some of those lockers. Break the rules a little bit. They're really cool, the old original wooden lockers, if you can peek inside of them. That's a neat feature that is still intact and part of the reason why this is still well preserved. The nomination form proposes that the site meets 2 National Register criteria: its association with African American heritage, education, and social history during segregation and integration, and 2, its architectural significance as a unique parish and school complex. And I want to give a shout out to HMW Preservation for all the work they've done, and for Rachel Mann, my good friend actually, who started this process, that I can hopefully have the honor of wrapping up today a little bit. In the opinion of planning staff, Our Lady of Victory was a cornerstone for West Southern Pines, and the nomination form tells a story of these buildings with tremendous original integrity, well preserved, and a community that pursued faith, integrity, and dignity during some of the most challenging decades of the 20th century. And for those reasons, we recommend your recommendation.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
Mason, if we see anything in the application that is a typo or it causes confusion, do we contact you or do we contact the Historic Division of the state?
If it is a technical correction and not a substantive correction,
Okay.
you may contact me. and
Okay,
I'll make sure
great.
that's
Thank
corrected.
you.
Okay. So do you need a motion for us to accept this? It's been nominated. Are we just accepting the nomination or are we approving it?
Support, like a motion of support or something, right? Not what you were wanting.
Yeah, what would you like from us?
You can elect to do this as a council altogether, which is what we've been doing. And so I think that a motion would be appropriate, and I'll have you sign the form right now, if you like.
Perfect.
I'll make a motion. I mean, this is excellent work, and I applaud you guys for all that you've done there. And so I'll make a motion that we fully support the nomination as submitted with any additional updates. That's the admission nomination as contained in our packet, that we put our full support behind its submittal.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. I'll get that form to you at the end of the meeting. All right, we have one planning board vacancy that we need to appoint a position or appoint someone to fill. I believe we had 2 applicants, potential of another coming in soon. Is there a motion
I
to,
think one of the applicants is present, Mr. Friday. And I would nominate him to fill that position. His qualifications are impeccable, and I think he'd do a great job.
and he served on a comprehensive planning committee, correct? Thank you for that. The only thing I do want to ask is the other person who applied, is there a substantial amount of time that they applied before? I need to pull this stuff up.
He applied back in December. Mr. Jeremy Haskell was the other applicant.
Have you spoken with them?
I have not. Have you had any correspondence with him? No.
Have you found, because we have openings throughout, like how long would his, how long is
So-
it like available to consider? Or do you kind of touch base with them each time a
There's a
opening
time limit.
comes?
It expires after a year, doesn't it?
Yes, on the application form, it does say that it expires after a year. And with applications like this and nominations and appointments that are purely, council direction, staff takes a little bit of a back seat on this. We inform you when there is a vacancy, but we don't really do any outreach since it is purely a political appointment. But we can certainly do that if you would like us to.
I mean, I think it looks like he spoke to Manager Parsons and one of our planning board members, Ms. Harvey, when he did apply. I hate to jump over him and then his application expires. And there's a chance that we have another one opening soon, don't we?
Vacancy coming up that you're familiar with, BJ?
The next position that will come up, Matthew Walden was I've done that a number of times. Matthew Walden was recently reappointed, so his position will be, is filled. Monica Bricky has been informed that her position is up at the end of January. She's still thinking about whether or not she wants to serve a second term. But after that, we don't have any that are up for a while.
Okay.
Monica is an ETJ member, so just to make you aware of that distinction.
So the dates, Mayor, one was December and the other was July.
Correct.
Yep. I mean, I feel like jumping over Jeremy and then his expiring, he clearly was interested in joining and then just didn't have an opening for some amount of time. And I feel like it would be, I don't know.
So we made another appointment while we had Jeremy's. There was another application that we had Jeremy's and another one.
Yep. That would have been
Yeah.
Mike, Mark?
His name.
Mike Skolnick was appointed in February of this year. So perhaps with that timing, he may have applied earlier than Mr. Haskell did, because that would have
I don't
been
think
about
there's
2
ever been
months.
discussion about at what point people applied as far as appointments since I've been a part of the council. I know we didn't consider that last time. He was present at the meeting, and I remember Councilman Gray saying that she trusted the fact that he was interested, and
Well, yeah, we had, since he was here, Mr. Skolnick had come up and we were asking him a couple of questions and whatnot. I know I did, yeah, and I
Yes.
think we all did, relevant to what he felt he could contribute to the planning board. So
right.
that's what I thought, because I didn't remember
It
Jeremy
was appropriate at the
Haskell's.
time.
It wasn't,
So if that's to be the criteria, then we probably need to make that clear to people who are applying in the future.
Well, I think there's qualifications also matter.
too.
So, but I don't disagree that if someone's applied and they are qualified, we should at least give them some consideration.
I'm happy to reach out to Jeremy and confirm that he's still interested if we have not done that. But I see no reason that he would not be still interested.
Well, I have made a motion, so if nobody wants to make a second, that's fine, but otherwise, I think we should vote on my motion.
Did you make a motion?
I did. I made a motion that we
I didn't hear
appoint.
the motion. Okay,
Yes, I did. Mhm.
okay.
So if there's no second, that's fine.
What was your motion? I just,
That Mr. Friday be appointed to the planning board.
I have no issue with either of these, so I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
I mean, I think, yeah. Yeah,
It's not a nay, it's just a not yet.
that's what I would agree. I feel like, and maybe this should have fallen on me between the last two meetings to reach out to both applicants. I just think, given two qualified people, I think it's inappropriate to not reach out before making a motion and appointing somebody.
I would say this is a good problem to have. We have had so many times where we couldn't find great candidates. There's two excellent ones.
Yes.
So it's a great problem to have, for sure.
And Mr. Friday, I do appreciate that you're here, but given that Jeremy probably didn't even know that we were voting on it, I think that he would be disappointed to find out that if he had been here, it would have been the difference between a yes or a no. So I will reach out to him. Do you all want to just wait and do this at the October meeting?
It's fine.
to do that, then, yeah, Mr. Friday, your presence is appreciated, and when Councilwoman Peterson just mentioned the fact that we gave Mr. Skolnick an opportunity to speak for himself, we haven't even offered you that opportunity, so I think it would be better if we hold it off, can we?
Okay.
To October. Is that all right with you, Ann?
So is your proposal that both of the candidates speak on their
Yeah,
own
get an
behalf at the next
opportunity
meeting?
to, certainly, because I
If that's to
think
be
they
the
have.
criteria, I'm keen with that. But I think we have a responsibility to have a clear policy. And if we are also going to take people in the order in which they apply, I think that needs to be firmly and clearly stated.
I think it's them being qualified is the first.
I agree with
thing.
that. I agree with that. I think that's the most important, in fact.
And I do appreciate that we have two qualified applicants. It really is, it's a luxury for us to have. All right, I will make sure that I reach out to both you and Jeremy between now and the next meeting. And do we need a motion to continue it, or can we just continue it? Just continue? Okay. No action until October town council meeting. Okay, we have our first legislative public hearing, AX-02-25, petition for annexation of a portion of land at 1271 Old US Highway 1. Do we have someone to present?
We have an application, a petition for annexation to annex the back portion of the property on your screen right here. Currently, the annexation boundary runs right through here. This application is however, one big parcel. And the property owner right now is Trophy Point Properties, and they would like to annex the back of this property. They have some interest in developing the back portion, this property right here, and they want to tidy it up and bring the entire property into city limits.
Council, do you have questions?
I have a question, but I'll ask it quickly, and if this is too off course. You just talked about because it was one parcel. When does this come about for the annexation? Because I'm looking at the map, that one right beside it is looks like a pretty large building that's half and half.
Yep.
But they're not asking, only because they don't have an intended use where they need that back half green, and does the annexation sort of come up as needed when they need to have it all in town before they can move forward with something?
Yeah, annexation boundaries sometimes will have a similar challenge to zoning boundaries, where someone will write a legal description that they're annexing a certain distance off of the edge of a right-of-way. And you can see that that's the case here. You have this little bit right here. You have this. Now, this one's been tidied up and brought into city limits. These have not. But the parcel lines, and the same happens on a zoning map. You see that frequently. They might adopt some zoning boundary that is in relation to a highway, and therefore they only go a certain distance. Now it begins to, so that's how these come to exist like this. Yes, sir.
They don't necessarily follow property lines, zoning, town lines.
Annexation boundaries sometimes wind up that way as well. This is an area with quite a bit of annexation complexity in history. This area where there's a pretty meandering boundary between Aberdeen and Southern Pines, and changes over time.
I mean, I'm in favor of bringing anything that's in our ETJ into the town limits. Is there any reason for us to be hesitant on that?
Not to my knowledge. You may want to you may want to hold the public hearing, see if anybody has anything to say that may inform your decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Director Grieve. Council, do you have questions for Director Grieve?
No.
Okay. As a public hearing, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Approve AX-02-25, the petition for annexation of a portion of land at 1271 Old US Highway 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The second public hearing is the amendment to zoning regulations regarding the process for amending plan developments. I believe we're back to Director Grieve.
And this one takes us back to September 9th, the earlier meeting wherein there were three primary topics that were proposed for I was about to say annexation, for zoning text amendments. The second two were approved by the town council and in fact have been updated already, and then the revised UDO has already been posted. The first of which was the matter of amending the requirements for amending the zoning text for the requirements for amending a plan development, and whether or not the signature of all landowners with land inside the plan development are required prior to submitting an application, or whether or not an application could be submitted by any landowner within the plan development without those signatures following the process. The text amendment right now has been prepared. I have spoken in the past about the history of this text amendment, having gone to the planning board to workshop this, followed by some of the anecdotes of those stories of who's interested in this, how it affects different parties. Again, I've shared those with the council in the past. I've spoken at work sessions about it in the past, but I'm happy to review any of those. Otherwise, the text as proposed is just this one page right here in the section dealing with the approval process, and it is an amendment to letter C and to letter D. What has been posted online, available to the public, going back prior to the September 9th opening of the hearing, is this right here with comments in the margins explaining the context of it.
Okay.
Can you explain so this is a request coming from staff. So this is not coming from any singular project. What kind of initiates this ask?
Great question. The current text amendment is a staff-initiated text amendment. It was initiated after going to the planning board to talk about a situation that has been brought to staff's attention by members of the development community. There are circumstances presently, and this is like how much detail to go into. There are some planned developments right now that cannot be amended because it would be nearly impossible to get all the landowners' signatures within that planned development. Some of those planned developments, there's a desire to amend them because the developer would like to make changes. Changes to adapt to current market conditions, changes to reduce costs. There are other situations where there are existing planned developments that our own comprehensive plan says should be amended to increase the intensity of development because infrastructure already exists there, such as the Knollwood development. The original staff report for this had, that was in the September 9th packet, had a reference to that section of the comprehensive plan and how Knollwood needs to be increased in its development intensity. There are a number of entities out there that would like to have the flexibility to apply to amend planned developments, such as those I've mentioned, but right now, with the way the UDO is written, they cannot even apply to amend them without the signature of everybody inside, and they feel it would be difficult to nearly impossible to get those signatures. This text amendment was therefore of interest to the development community, of interest to the town in implementing the comprehensive plan. And so staff took this situation to the planning board for a discussion about whether or not they recommended staff should initiate the text amendment or sit back and wait for the private development community to initiate a text amendment where they pay a fee to request a text amendment. The planning board recommended that staff bring it forward to have the discussion at planning board, to have the discussion at town council, to have the public hearings. And so staff did that at the recommendation of the planning board. So that's what, and the planning board recommended approval. And that's as quick, that's about as brief as I can try to make the story. Yes, yes, sir.
And at the time, in answer to Mr. Pate's question, that it was not necessarily initiated by staff would be correct. It was initiated by the interest of the development community.
I would say after a work session before the planning board advised staff to go ahead and process a text amendment and bring it through the process. That's probably the most accurate way to characterize it based on the record, yes.
So you said earlier, not initiated by staff, but rather by members of the development community. You don't stand by that comment.
Gosh, okay.
I don't think we need to ask questions that are going to feel like gotcha questions, even though you are the one who said gotcha. I guess
I
we're
think it's important that we ask
mishearing.
questions, however. It's a pretty significant
I
change.
agree, we should, just not gotchas. Yeah, if you'll clarify just where it started.
Okay, so as I said, members of the development community who have had, again, I will try to keep this brief, but I'll go maybe come around it again just so I don't step over. Okay, members of the community who have an interest in planned developments that exist right now that would like to make changes for a variety of reasons. Some of which is to respond to market conditions, some of which is to reduce costs that may be something inefficient. They come to staff and they say, can we make this amendment? And staff says, not according to the UDO, because you need to have everybody's signature. And they say, we're never going to be able to get everybody's signature. I say, well, then you can't bring in the application. And they say, well, that's ridiculous. And I say, well, okay, but that's the way it is. And they say, well, what about in your own comprehensive plan, you have a planned development where you're calling for an increased intensity of development in that planned development. You can't amend it either. The owner of that land can't amend it either to implement the comprehensive plan. We say, yeah, you're right. That's an odd problem. So after hearing from these members of the development community and staff recognizing that there's a difficulty in implementing the comprehensive plan, we kind of got to a stalemate. And I said, development community, why don't you go ahead and initiate a text amendment? And they went away. And when they came back, Bob Kuntz, representing the developers who had spoken to him about this issue, said, none of my clients would like to pay the fee and initiate the text amendment. And he said, I think staff should do it because you have a vested interest because of the implementing the comprehensive plan. I said, that's a fair thing. However, I don't want to, as planning director, say, here's this text amendment. Let's take it to the planning board. And we said, yeah, it seems reasonable. Let's take it to the planning board. And if they say this is a stupid idea, go away. Or if they say this is great, we think this is wonderful. So we took it to the planning board. Planning board looked at it. Bob was there. He walked through his perspective. I was there. I walked through my perspective. The planning board said, yeah, we think this is fine. Staff should go ahead and prepare a text amendment and bring it through the process. And I said, okay, now that's the initiation of it, and it allows for the public hearing process to occur, which is culminating with this public hearing here this afternoon.
The way that PDPs are set right now, if 100 years goes by, they can't change them unless they have all the property owners sign off.
Right now is that if you have, let's say, a 100-acre planned development zone, and you begin to develop it and you sell off parcels, if you need to amend it, you get to phase 4, you need to amend it for something from phase 4 through 8. You have to go back to whoever you sold the land to for phases 1 through 3 and get their approval to submit an application to change the zoning, because they kind of bought into that zoning. So you got to go back and get there. And to be clear, I'm aware of the fact that about a year ago, 2 years ago, I was standing explaining why the text is the way it is right now. It's just that that has had a result of what I described. So now we're taking another look at it to see if it's appropriate to change it again. And that's why we talk about when we adopt zoning, we say, we'll see how it works out. It's a living document, et cetera, et cetera. As long as you go through the process, you can change it on a regular, you can change it as often as you need to get it right. And whether or not this is right is really a policy decision.
I have a question. So I know while it was specific projects prompted those questions to you, when we're asked to do this, there's no project in mind. We are changing the base rules that's going to affect all of Southern Pines. So when I'm analyzing this, I'm not thinking about a single project. I'm thinking, is this a good idea for all of our rules for everywhere?
Yes, sir.
And that's leading me, to be like, I'm not really that crazy about it, because I'm not thinking about a specific project. I'm just like, if we're setting our base rules. In the future, say one of those projects you're thinking about is just, it's at the stalemate and makes absolute sense in the public interest. Gosh, we'd love to make this change, but we can't. What stops them singularly from coming and saying, we're not asking you to change all of the rules for Southern Pines, but can you change the rules for this 100-acre project because of A, B, and C? Or are they never allowed to do that?
You wouldn't, under the current rules, they can't apply to amend that plan development without all the signatures of landowners. So if they came in and said, we would like to change it just for this project, that's essentially what they are doing. If the text amendment as it's currently written is passed, then they are allowed to bring in their plan development, request an amendment to it without the signatures of however many landowners. They have to be notified. There has to be a neighborhood meeting. So they can't do it without people knowing if they're absentee landowners, et cetera. Then they could come in, and then you could have a planning board public hearing and a town council public hearing on a change to just that plan development for just the changes being requested. And if the change is, I'll just say nonsense for whatever reason, it doesn't jive with the comprehensive plan, it's not good public policy, it's just, I'll just say, it just appears to be greed, whatever, then it can be addressed accordingly individually for each project. Right now, with the way the UDO is written, they cannot apply. They can't get to that point because it's locked in.
But they could apply for the UDO modification.
A privately initiated application for a text amendment to do
Right,
this
right.
could be initiated. That was the discussion I had with Bob on behalf, he speaking on behalf of 3 clients.
Everybody though.
Like,
But it would still affect everybody.
yeah, that text amendment at that point, you'd be right back to here saying, we want to change the text so that we can at least apply to amend our plan development. Right now, staff has proposed that text because of the story I told.
It would just apply to people in PDs.
It would only apply to people in PDs, correct? And again, just to be clear, this isn't a text amendment that is an amendment to a PD. This is a text amendment to allow a process for amending a PD to occur without everyone's signature. It can occur now, it just has to have everybody's signature.
There's a fee to amend your PD.
Yes,
If-
that would be a
if-
zoning amendment fee. Yep.
If there is an undergoing development and people have already come in relying in law, it would be called a detrimental reliance. If plots 1, 2, and 3 within a development have detrimentally relied on the fact that this is a protection that they currently have under the UDO, they no longer have that protection.
So a situation like that, they would get a notice, according to the way it's written. The first thing would happen is, let's say I own 10 acres of that 100 acres, and it was phase 1. I bought it from the developer. I developed it in accordance with the CDP, and I like the requirements of that plan development, the architecture, the parking, the
Right.
building height requirements, everything. And I want to see that in the other 90 acres. That's why I'm investing in this. The first thing that happened is, say a few years go by, I would get a notice in the mail, there's going to be a neighborhood meeting about a request to amend the plan development. And then the next thing would happen and I could choose to go to that or not. I would then get a notice from our office of a public hearing occurring before the planning board. And in answer to your question, I can go to the planning board, I can go to the neighborhood meeting, I can take my attorney with me to go to the neighborhood meeting, go to the planning board meeting, go to the town council meeting and say, here's my deal. I invested, and that actually has happened.
And I relied on this being the way.
Right, that
the
has
rules were at
happened,
the
where they
time,
said,
but
listen, I relied on the fact that there was a restriction in here to only, I'll give you an example, a certain number of multifamily residential units. I bought those. I don't want to change it now to allow more in the rest of the project. And then it's up to the elected officials ultimately, prior to that, the planning board, to make a decision, a recommendation by the planning board and a decision by town council, whether or not that has merit in terms of whether public policy outweighs that to the point where turns out this change being brought forward is good for, is a better implementation of the comprehensive plan, is needed because 7 years have gone by and circumstances have changed, all of which is very possible as well.
I think there's very much a nefarious side of the way it's currently written too, from the perspective of controlling competition. And I maybe have a question too for Mike. How common is this type of language across other jurisdictions?
One of the jobs of a town attorney is to protect the council's right to decide.
Right.
So in this case, state law lets you have this right. You may change your rules.
Right.
My guess is, without any data, is that most places would let you make changes to already approved plans. The other thing I want to mention is that you see there are two highlighted blocks up there. The top one contains two guardrails for this proposal. The first guardrail is that if a change would violate the rights of anybody who bought with reference to a subdivision plat that promised them some amenities like parks or a road or a clubhouse, you can't take those amenities away. Case law in North Carolina protects the rights of those purchasers. That's what Ms. Peterson was asking about. So if that's true, you can't do this. The second guardrail to this is that state law doesn't allow you to downzone anything unless everyone who owns property consents to it. So that would put you back into the rule of all property owners have to consent. So there are two guardrails on this.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Attorney McCarley, while you've got the
Yes, sir.
microphone. What I'm struggling with is this whole change seems to be initiated by specific details and specific projects. But my understanding is I can't factor any of those into my filter when I'm deciding, do I like this amendment or not? I need to not think about proposed plan development, solar bonds. I need to just think, okay, in a vacuum, moving forward, am I comfortable with this? But not thinking, oh, this project needs to do this, that project needs to do that. Am I correct in like, this is not a project-specific decision?
It is not project-specific, but you are more than welcome to think about it in terms of projects that you're aware of.
So you can.
And this has probably come up because of specific projects.
And-
So, yeah.
And that's where I'm struggling with the fact that there's not a way that a specific project could ask only for their acreage. I just don't like the way that it has to affect every single one because it's a base rule. There's no other recourse that they could ask.
If the policy choice is made to change this so that the process is there to amend a plan development. Now remember, any amendment to a plan development now comes in and has a hearing, and if you look at that amendment and you say, I don't like this amendment, I don't want this amendment to happen.
And it would be legislative, right?
It would be legislative. I don't think they've made a compelling argument of why they need this specific amendment in this specific project at this specific time. The answer can be denied. You may not. So that this amendment to the text allows a process where you can look at them individually. I think what I'm hearing you say is, I could be wrong, but I think what I'm hearing you say is you wish there was a way to look at the individual projects, not necessarily just something that's blanket. Well, this blanket change to process allows you to look at the individual amendments.
That's right.
So
So this amendment puts the power back onto our plate on a case-by-case basis.
it does put the power to apply and to ask for things that may not be consistent with the comprehensive plan, may not be consistent with good public policy, et cetera, but they can ask, go through the process and have the hearing held, and then it can be decided on a case-by-case basis whether or not it's appropriate.
And as it's currently written, we can't even, it would never even get here because you could never even receive an
Unless they
application.
can get the signatures of all the landowners, that's correct.
Or unless they file an application and bring it through. Unless they file an application,
application to change-
they file an application in the UDO. I'm sorry, modification in the UDO. I cut you off. Yeah.
Correct. A privately
And it
initiated
is-
text amendment is always an option.
And this is driven currently, this rewritten proposed UDO change has been inspired by the development community.
Yeah, if it wasn't for a representative of multiple developers initiating phone calls and emails with me, I wouldn't be standing here right
Right.
now. That's correct.
Right.
However, I feel that I have to add our own comprehensive plan does encourage some infill development in planned developments that also cannot be amended with the current language. And therefore, staff sits and looks at that and says, yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
It's not uncommon, though, for you to receive questions from not just the development community, but also citizens about issues that they've come across with
Yeah.
the UDO that precludes them from doing something that they would like to do. I mean, that's not an uncommon occurrence.
It's a daily occurrence, right? Yeah.
As it relates specifically to Knollwood, which you mentioned in your initial remarks, as it relates to that, there are some plots that have already been purchased and developed, and now there would be a different set of rules for the plots that were to be developed, and there would have been detrimental reliance by the people who originally bought those plots and relied on the original UDO reading.
Only if this board approved it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand.
steps down the
I
road.
hear I hear I don't know, the caution or whatever, but bottom line, this town council still has that vote. We still make that determination. We haven't lost. Tell me what you're thinking about, Bill. I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I'm struggling with, I guess, the change again, because I'm thinking more neutrality. I guess if this had been privately initiated, I assumed that they would go into detail, like, hey, here's why I'm bringing this to you, here's why I paid the fee, it's so important to me because A, B, and C. But I don't have that for this, so I'm just looking at it from a big picture.
Yeah, and then the discussion you'd be having is, say, for example, developer X comes in and says, I want to amend the text exactly as you see right there. It's my private initiated application. And that developer then says, here's all the reasons why I need to make this change, but I can't make this change without everybody's signature. So I first want to amend the text, and then I'm going to bring, and then you'd be having the discussion of, well, we're changing the entire process. This is a scenario where you do get to have a policy discussion, not related to PD1, PD2, PD3, PD4. The policy discussion is, do we want to allow people to amend planned developments without the signature of all the landowners within it and have a public hearing and hear what the change is? Or do we want to keep the language the way it is and say, no, once your PD is set, you're pretty much set unless you get everybody's signature?
I do, I've read the, and I do feel like our current language is wonky. And I kind of was talking to the mayor about it, and I drew a parallel. It's not exactly the same, but can create a similar consequence. In the past, the development community could subdivide, create a subdivision and put a spike strip, what was called a spike strip, all the way around the development of 20 feet or 30 feet. Mid-South has that. Number 9 has that, and it's retained by the developer, and it's this spike strip that goes all the way around the development. And so what it enabled them to do is control any access from the town or from an adjacent development or anything, and create a situation of what I would define as borderline extortion, where it was like, we want to extend sewer that's already in your development, but you have to pay me some fee to go across this 30 feet of my land. The General Assembly got rid of that. And took that away from the development community to be able to create that situation. I also see this very much as I see the issue with an issue going on within a PD as very much a civil issue between private parties. If there was a grocery store as a part of a PD, I feel very certain that their purchase agreement would contain language that says no other grocery store can be a part of this PD. So a lot of this, to me, is very much a civil matter, but I also see that other nefarious side of where, one, we are definitely abdicating our decision-making ability to people that might not even live here, because you own certain amount of land, and you don't even have to own a lot of land to be, I mean, there's some situations where I think there's PDs where it's just a very small land, but they have control over what goes on, and that's just a wonky situation for me.
There are anecdotes of it being used in ways that make complete sense and don't make any.
Right.
And that's part of the reason this policy decision is before you, is because over time you say, you gotta figure this section out. And yes.
But to Bill's point, do you know, or do you have, I think I have an idea, but do you know the hesitation of why anyone didn't want to initiate it?
Because it would be that person standing right here. I
Right,
don't think, they just don't wanna do that.
right. I get it. I think that's,
Coming from our staff, because I feel like if it were one entity coming and requesting the text amendment, our focus would be on that specific project. And really, this is a broad change. And it may make sense for some areas and it may not make sense for others. And I would rather look at it holistically
yeah.
than focusing on one at a time. Like if we're gonna make decisions one at a time, that would be done later.
And ultimately, there is also a third guardrail, which is us.
Yeah.
I feel good about, based on what Max said earlier about the conditions of this, that if there were certain things already said in that original PD, they can't just ignore it, and decide, oh, well, we're gonna change all this around, for particular people who may have bought into it. And I don't know, I guess I look at the fact that if we have the opportunity to hear from the public, we have the opportunity to just hear it all, we can make a sound decision that's gonna be for the betterment of the community, period. So I don't have a problem with it, but I'm listening to my counsel and want to hear more from you.
I'm interested in why you think that would not be a detriment to people who had bought into the PD originally and relied on the stipulation originally.
If what
is
is
that?
being proposed is not going against what they originally expected to have
But
happen.
it is.
But as Max said, it comes, it does have the guardrails there, and it
Yeah.
goes through the neighborhood meeting, the planning board, and then the council.
Give me
So if it
an
is
example of
detrimental,
what
they
you
would
mean.
bring
I'm
it to us.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Give me an example of what you mean, Ann, how something could go
A
against
giant piece
it.
of land, I buy Plot A, I follow the rules. I understand when I buy Plot A that everybody has to follow the rules. And then you buy Plot B, and you also follow the rules. And then somebody else comes in and buys Plot C and says, you know what? I don't think we want to I think we're going to go to the UDO as they've changed it now, and I want to put up twice as many. You and I both build a bunch of apartments on A and B, and somebody comes in and buys C, and they say, I want to go ahead and put up twice as many apartments. And they can with this change.
No, they cannot.
They can.
No,
cannot.
They would have to,
Significant change on the infill.
They can make an application.
Right, they
That's
can
that's what
ask
I
for
understand.
it.
They can make an
An
application
application
regardless of
which-
you and I owning whatever.
Right.
But the decision is still going to come from the town council based on the public's opinion.
Does it bother you that you owned the Plot B and you thought you knew the rules, and the rules can now change based on what the town council
I
does?
own Plot B, but I don't own the whole thing.
and Plot B,
So I can't.
Plot A and B can actually come and speak to us.
Using that analogy also, though, would be similar to saying that the town should never change the zoning of any land. The town, not the
That's-
PD, but the town should never change the zoning of any land because somebody bought into it.
I feel like that's my sticking point, is that things evolve and things change. And if we put these PDPs in place and they are permanent forever, I just don't know that they're going to make sense forever, being exactly as they were thought out ahead of time. And it makes sense to have some sort of a process to evaluate, look at what the PDP originally said and look at what they want to change it to and say, does it make sense or not?
There's still a significant lift
Yeah.
to get something across the finish line.
What happens if they held a neighborhood meeting and the planning board meeting and the council meeting and someone who owns Plot A saw the notices but didn't pay attention, they just don't come to the meetings? I mean, I guess they get a notification from the person who's amending it, and then they get one from the town.
Two from the town.
Okay.
I'm hearing the question correctly, if they do not respond to those, their perspective is not taken into consideration by the time the decision is made.
But we're still looking at, I guess we would still be looking at original PDP and amended PDP.
We're absolutely going to do a comprehensive plan analysis. So
yeah.
we would, for
On if it
example,
makes
as a
sense.
service we provide to the town council, we would come in and say, hey, the circumstances have changed such that this is needed. You know, there are circumstances where maybe it's the community absolutely needs more housing of a certain type, and this plan well, that's what's going on in Knollwood. Knollwood was originally entitled, and then when the comprehensive plan was looked at and the projections were made for growth, and we took a middle above the road approach to how much growth to accommodate, Matt Noonkester was looking and said, you need more space for stuff, and you've already put sewer pipes over here, you've already put roads over here, you've already planned for water lines over here, et cetera, et cetera. You really should put more stuff in there. And then the landowner is told that, and they say, great. Sometimes in the planning process and the zoning process, there's people who have impacts to them, and that's an unfortunate, reality. This was one, it was a positive impact. Hey, the comp plan came out and said, looks like you should have more stuff there. And that developer in that case cannot apply to do that, and that's the perspective that staff keeps thinking of as a potential detriment to the public of not being able to modify that plan development and create more infill there. But yes, there's the other side as well.
Yeah, I see both sides. I mean, I see all the positives, but I mean, I also have just the reservations, like I say, and I know Max said I can, but I just don't think it's fair for me to think of specific projects as I'm making this decision, to where, I probably would lean on the side of not opening that Pandora's box just yet. But I do see the argument on both sides of it.
And if you were sitting in our seats. I mean, you see it all. You have all the people come to your office who want to make crazy changes, and you all are a filter before it ever gets to us. So you see more of it than we do.
Permission to speak freely, ma'am?
Absolutely. That's what I'm asking. Go for it.
I'm going to watch Mac while I speak. If I were in your seat, and I would approve this text amendment, and I would hold my nose while doing it. And what I say by holding my nose while doing it is that it would come with a clear statement that this is not open season for amending plan developments to respond to whatever latest slight breeze blew in the market, to respond to it and to capitalize on it and to squeeze extra development out of something, because the comp plan is the town's guiding document when it comes to adopting and amending zoning. If you have a situation where your plan development can be modified and it's being done for a reason that benefits the developer and the community in accordance with the comprehensive plan, then we'll take a look at it. We'll run it through the process. But if it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan, the staff tells you that, then if I were in your shoes, I would say, then the staff will inform us of that, and we will look upon it unfavorably simply because it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan.
And if we made the change today, and they went through that process with you, and then they still insisted they came to us, you would advise us that it is not in the,
Yes, as we do now, because
Okay.
that comprehensive plan is our guiding document, and we do our analysis accordingly. And when an applicant isn't consistent with it, or when an applicant doesn't give us the information we request to prepare reports for you, we let you know that, and we have genuinely appreciated so much your support of the work we're trying to do to deliver that. So, yes.
I guess I have one more follow-up question as I'm like seeing all sides here. I guess my thinking is I'm just, at the moment, I'm not ready yet. And understanding that a private person could ask for this again in the future, or you could ask for this again in the future. But if we make this change, I just don't see any going back. Like, I don't see the reversal of this. Well, I guess it's possible. I just don't see that ever
It
happen.
would be impossible because that would be down zoning.
I don't know. But I guess.
No, would it not? Why is it not down zoning if we,
Because this is a text amendment rather than a provision applying to specific land.
okay. Just wait another week.
you all have additional questions for staff, we can do that, or I'd like to open the public hearing, like actually open the floor to the public. Oh, wait, the public hearing is open because we're discussing it, but open the floor to the public. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak? No pressure. Okay. Rather than closing the public hearing, unless there's someone who's ready to make a motion.
I wanted to defer to, do you want to wait until, think about this some more till the next meeting and ask?
No, I mean, if you're ready to make a motion, you can go ahead. I mean, I'm okay with that.
To pack my nose plugs, so I'm a hard no.
I hear you. I hear you, Councilman.
I move to approve amendment to zoning regulations regarding the process for amending plan developments with the understanding that this is not open season for amending currently zoned plan developments.
I second that motion.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
Nay, thank you.
Motion carries 3-2. I will echo Councilmember Goodman and Director Grieve. It is not open season on amending PDPs. If anything is brought to us, I will expect them to uphold the highest and best use of land for their existing neighbors and for the entire town, and it ought to match the comprehensive plan. Otherwise, it is a no-go for this council. Okay.
Echo that as well. I trust this council. I've watched us make some decisions on some major decisions, and we've been hard. We've been extremely hard. We've been very detailed, and I trust our judgment on whether or not something is right for all those involved or whether it's not. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Since we make the last decision, yeah.
It's not a fun one. All right. I don't know if I quote unquote closed the public hearing. Does it matter? Okay, I was like, we voted. I think I mentioned closing it, but I don't think I said I'm closing it. Okay. Just making sure. Attorney says it's good. All right, moving to council updates and discussion. We have the Sand Hills Bogies.
Got another public hearing.
Oh, sorry. I just jumped right over it. All right, our installment financing contract for 300 Southwest Broad Street.
So our public hearing today is a requirement in the process to go before the Local Government Commission, also called the LGC. And municipalities and other local governments must go before them when they intend to take on debt. And so we have identified at this point that our plan to purchase the town hall property at 300 Southwest Broad Street is by obtaining a loan in an amount not to exceed $7 million. We put out an RFP and received 2 proposals for the loan and then 1 no bid. We are on the Local Government Commission agenda on October 7th, and at that time they will review our application to go through with this financing contract. So the purpose of the public hearing today is not on any of the specific proposals. It is really whether financing and obtaining debt for this purchase is in the public interest or not. And so after you close the public hearing, then the next step would be to adopt a resolution, which we would forward to the Local Government Commission, stating that you have found that it is in the public interest. Following the Local Government Commission, then you would have other steps of actually approving the specific financing contract.
And can you give us an update on the financing? I know we discussed it at the end of our last regular business meeting.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Tess Brubaker-Spees, our finance director. She's got some updates on the work we've done since the last meeting.
Thank you.
So is this on?
You have to put your mouth pretty close to that.
Okay. So we went back out to First Bank and got a better interest rate for their 20-year term. They came in at 4.3% for a 20-year term. And like Jessica said, we got a no bid from First Citizens, and the 20-year rate from Truist was 4.452%. And just for your information, I did send the RFP to 9 different banks.
I'm glad we heard back from 3 of them. Sort of, yeah.
That's a requirement from the LGC. We would have had to go back out had we not gotten the 3
Least
that we
response,
got.
good.
And so this, whatever document you needed to submit a few weeks ago, that's done, right? Did you say that?
Yeah, so the
sorry.
LGC application was sent with our application fee before the September 2nd deadline.
Based on this low bid?
I took a general, I didn't have the 4.3% at that time. So
Okay.
this is a worst case scenario and we'll come in under that.
Okay, thank you.
Tess, I'm sorry, can you repeat the First Bank interest rate and the Truist interest rate again?
The 20-year rate for First Bank was 4.3%. Truist was 4.452.
And did either of those banks have a penalty for early repayment on the principal?
Yes, First Bank does not, and Truist has a declining prepayment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do you all have other questions for Tess or Assistant Town Manager Roth? Okay, I will open the floor if anyone from the public would like to speak. Okay, seeing none. Council, do you have other questions for staff? Or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that it is in the public interest for us to enter into this installment financing contract, and staff may
Yeah, thank you.
work on the resolutions or whatever is necessary to move forward.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you both. Okay, now we'll move on to council updates. We have the Bogies interested in using the Southern Pines Sports Park.
So I will start off with this. So you guys are probably all familiar with the Sandhills Bogies. They're a collegiate summer baseball team that's been here in the Sandhills area for about 3 years now. They are a member of the Old North State League, which we incorrectly stated was 14 teams in our memo. The owner of the league, Mr. Alec Allred, is here with us today, and he informed us it is 24 teams. So they approached the town back in the spring now. They currently play at Sandhills Community College. And the college has informed them that due to future construction, they are going to have to vacate the campus. So they approached us to see if we might have space and if we might be interested in possibly entering into an agreement with them to use one of our facilities to play. So we've had quite a few meetings and ongoing discussions, email discussions throughout probably about 6 months now. Mac McCarley, our town attorney, has been involved. Town manager Reagan Parsons, the mayor, attended one of those meetings. And really what we wanted to do through those meetings was to better understand their operational needs and to share our logistics, our scheduling with them to see if it was even viable. So through some of that back and forth and information sharing, I think staff from both groups has gotten comfortable with the operational needs. And so the reason that we're before you today is we wanted to find out before we continue to invest any more time and effort into drafting an agreement to see if this is something that council is interested in possibly pursuing. Mr. Allred is here to answer questions and talk about their proposals, but a few of the upfront things that we've talked about. They plan to invest anywhere from about $200,000 to $300,000 in order to open, which they would plan to open and start playing next summer. After looking at our various facilities, they've decided that Armory Field at Southern Pines Sports Park, which is at the corner of West Morganton Road and South Henley Street, you can see it on the screen, is the best facility for their needs. So what they would be doing is installing new fencing and doing some minor modifications to that field in order to bring it up to the collegiate baseball standards. They also have grandstands and lights that are on the college campus, and they have spoken with the college, and they would be relocating and installing those over here. You can actually see in this picture, while it is a baseball softball field, if you look in the far right outfield, you can see some soccer lines. And the reason you see that is because we often use the outfield for soccer, rugby practice, flag football. And the reason why is because this is one of our lighted fields. And as you've heard from some of our other athletic facility discussions, lighted fields are at a premium here in Southern Pines. So we informed them of that need. And so what they have offered to do as part of that initial investment is to purchase and install lights at J. Pleasant Hines Park. We have a really nice recreational field there. And so by installing lights there, we could relocate activities like that that don't require a baseball, softball field. So we think that's a real win for us. It would give us another lighted field and would also allow our baseball, softball field to, be used for that and keep it in better condition. They would, again, also be installing new fencing then.
She said they will be able to, I know that the guy they just paid for those new lights and the CVP grant helped pay for them. They can move those things, or are they unusable again?
No, they'll be able to move.
Okay. And
Would you like to come up to the microphone? Yeah.
Coming up, I just wanted to go ahead and share kind of two non-negotiables with you, because if we can't really get consensus and a comfort level with these two, there's really no point continuing at this point. One of them is that based on their financial investment, they've identified that they would need at least 10-year minimum agreement with us. So that's what we're bringing to you today. And then also, they have third-party vendors that sell beer and wine at their games. It's within a confined space on the college campus, only during games, but that is an important part of their revenue stream. And so in order to make this financially viable, they would also need to be able to sell beer and wine just during their games and in a confined space here, along with food. So
there's a question I had on that before you move on to something else. And you would maybe know, you said you're putting in some new fencing. So I know when you're out there at the college, you had that fencing to where there was like that one gate, so you could kind of make sure people weren't wandering out in the parking lot with their beer. Is your fence configuration going to be able to confine the folks that are buying your food and beverage?
Yeah, so what we would create exterior fencing as well.
Okay.
So we would replace all the fencing on the interior that actually surrounds the baseball field, and then we would create exterior fencing as well to confine it inside of the fencing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So what you can see here, I've included a directional arrow. So you can see our water tank there on South Henley Street. And so kind of on the north side of the outfield, we've got an unpaved area. So that's the area that we've talked about using with them for some additional parking. And I think they would probably locate some food trucks there. And so that's kind of the area that we've talked about.
Ms. Roth,
There.
when will these games be?
So they play in the summertime, but I'll let Mr. Allred talk to you about more specific details.
Yeah, so pretty much our schedule is from mid-May to mid-August. I mean, we allow that, but really the bulk of it is in June and July.
What day?
They're very, very random. Probably 25 games or so throughout the year. They're in the Coastal Division, so there's a lot of teams in this division that are along, obviously, in beach towns. And so those teams prioritize their home games during weekdays to avoid the turnover of tourism. So the teams that are inland, they like to play on the weekends. And since they're in the Coastal Division, they pretty much get the weekends.
So do we know if there's ever going to be any conflict with like farmer's market and or soccer?
No,
No, that there's no conflict, or no, we don't know if there's going to be?
no, we don't. That's one of the things that we've been talking through
Okay.
a lot is their games are in the late afternoons or evenings. So
Okay.
that
Well, that
addresses
works.
the farmer's
Yeah.
market conflict.
And soccer
And-
too.
Right. And also that's not our soccer season. We've given them our seasons of soccer and baseball, and we think
Right,
we will
that's
be
true.
ending soccer about the time that they would be starting. And I think also since our soccer is on non-lit fields, they have to play at a different time of day than the Buggies could play. So some of that solves for itself.
We also would be we obviously would be flexible. So the way that it works, I'm kind of in a weird position because I started this league, but my family owns part of this team. This is only one of 2 teams out of the 24 that my family actually has an ownership stake in. The rest of them are privately owned. So I'm going to kind of talk to you from the league's point of view and then also the team's point of view throughout this. Normally, the way it works at the league level is we'll reach out to the teams. We just did this a few days ago, and we'll ask them to submit their dates for their league games, their division games. And they'll submit dates. But before they ever submit those dates to us, they have to get those dates approved by you guys. And chances are the Bogies and every other team in the Old North State League is going to go to their town and ask, do these 30 dates work? Because they're going to play exhibition games. I mean, they're probably going to shoot for like a 25-game regular season schedule. So 10 of those games are going to be outside of the league itself. But those dates are going to have to be approved by staff before it even gets to us to make the schedule.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I have.
I just have a quick question, not for you, sir. BJ, what housing development is that over there behind upper portion? Yeah, that spot in there.
I don't know the name of it off the top of my head.
I know it's one of the projects in town. I'm not sure if that's
It's the one
Brookside or if it's.
It's not Brookside, you enter
Old
it off of
projects.
West Morganton.
Yeah. They call it the old projects in West Southern Pines here. Just curious.
Housing.
Longleaf neighborhood. It is the Longleaf community housing.
Longleaf, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Look, it says Longleaf. Courts, okay.
So Eric, you said Eric, is that right?
No.
Alex, sorry.
Alex.
No, I don't know if y'all been, the Bogies games are really fun. My son loves it. He's just a fun event. They have a lot of support in the community. They were in Southern Pines before because Sandhills is in Southern Pines.
true.
If not here, I mean, would you be looking to take it outside of Southern Pines, Pinehurst area for field availability? I mean, I'd love to keep this here locally. It's just a really neat thing. But I guess if not this, would it be too far away to be enjoyable by the community?
It really does. It would get tough, So I don't know if everybody knows the backstory to us going to Sandhills Community College, but at the time we brought the team to Sandhills, my family owned the whole team. My family owned the league, and the league owned every team in the league. And we invested $500,000 into Sandhills' field. It continuously just kept going up, but we knew that the team, like after the first year, we saw how successful it was, and we're like, okay, well, it's fine. Like based off of our at least at that point, our ROI for those years, it was panning out where we could continue to invest into the field because we were drawing more crowds and bigger fans to games and whatnot throughout the course of the next couple of years. Well, this kind of got sprung on us out of nowhere. And so we really, obviously I have to be careful because I mean this genuinely. Dr. Dempsey was huge for us to give us a chance here. Obviously things have changed since then, and Dr. Stewart and everybody's been great to us, but we would have never invested that much money had we known that this was going to happen. Now, they are in their rights to do that. There was a clause in there that said that they could do this. We just were told it probably wasn't. There was a very, very good chance it would never happen. So I say all that to say we want the team to stay in this area because it's very successful, and we think it's really good for the community. But it'll be tough if we have to go to a high school field or something like that. It'll never be what it is now. And to be honest with you, what it is now is very small compared to what it would be there, in my opinion, because it's in the heart. This is in the heart of everything. They're going to Sandhills. This is a decent drive from Aberdeen, and it's a decent drive from downtown. So
The
I'm not
lights,
going to say it's not going to leave the area, but it would get tough.
yeah. The lights that you would put up, are they limited, like in how far they reach, or are they going to create issues with these neighbors, do you think?
Yeah, they're actually shielded because of the airport.
Oh, okay,
So, yeah,
okay.
So would you use the lights, the new lights would be the ones that would go on this field?
yeah,
And then would these be the ones you'd move to Hines Park, or those would be different ones?
they would be different ones.
Are these able to be moved across the street to the soccer fields, or no? no to go, huh?
These are pretty
old
old.
ones.
They were probably going to need to be replaced before too much
Okay.
longer
I
anyway.
just wanted to ask.
So we're actually looking at a solar option for Heinz Park. So that is the light option that you approved for the skate park in Reservoir Park, and we've ordered those. They're actually here. We're getting ready to install them soon. If they are successful as we think they're going to be at Heinz Park, then we're going to look at them for the soccer fields because they have some nice benefits that the traditional lights don't have for that location.
So I guess to your 2 points, and I had one other question. I'm okay with the negotiables so long as, again, you can confine the food and beverage consumption. So I think it's important to not just have people wandering off. My third question is, I mean, I guess if we pass this hurdle, it will be in the next details, but I have no clue. When something like this happens, is there rent or is there investment of $300,000 into our town facility, like the trade-off? Is that the rents? Because they're putting so much into it. And I don't know how the economics of that works.
Yeah, that's typically how we've done it. Like the lease that was presented is the exact lease that we signed in Oak Island. My family owns the other team in Oak Island, but there's other leases just like this throughout our league where there's an initial investment. Like my philosophical reason for where we select our markets is not based off of facilities necessarily. It's markets. And so a lot of times, for example, New Bern, really, really good market. There's no facility at the time that could hold a college summer league team. So that's kind of what we do. There's a lot of different opinions on that. Other leagues would say, no, you can't go anywhere without a stadium already being built to this capacity. I think it's better to get into really good areas and then build out from there once you prove the concept. So yeah, we'll throw the money in at the front end. We spent $200,000 in Oak Island. We actually spent more than that. So it was $200,000 was the agreement, but every $20,000 that we spent above that added another year onto the lease. So basically they put a value of $20,000 per year. And we had to keep up with our receipts, of course, and to turn those in and stuff.
Do you have merchandise on your website?
Yes.
I just would like your hat.
Yeah.
I definitely understand now why you said you wanted at least 10 years. You guys have been burned, and yeah, I really get it. I really get it, and I'm totally with you. I got to admit, I'm kind of thinking like Bill is thinking in terms of people consuming alcohol, because softball and alcohol, sometimes people get a little wild. And that particular area is pretty much an African-American community. Like I said, folks call it the old projects. And in a lot of the communities, folks don't have cars, and so people are walking. And the availability of alcohol being near I'm just, I don't know. I don't know. Help me, yeah.
So this is obviously something that every city asks me when we come in and present like this. Number one, we couldn't get our retail permits without exterior fencing. So that the North Carolina ABC wouldn't even give us a permit without exterior fencing. Not at least the permit that we would need. I think you could technically get an off-premise retail permit potentially, but you'd have to have bathrooms in that building. So that's one thing. But also every single lease that we have, city council or in some cases the county commissioners, if it's with the county government, they always mandate that there has to be like X number of officers per anticipated crowds. And so typically it's like one officer for every 500 people. If we, opening day is probably going to be, we'll probably have 4, we'd probably want to have a lot of officers just in case. But we always, you would always place an officer at the beer garden area, where the beer's being sold at. So, and I'll go back to Oak Island just because I know their operations as a team owner a lot more in depth than some of the other teams that are still in our league. But like in Oak Island, there was an officer at the entry points. At each entry point, there was an officer at where the beer was being sold out of and stuff. So we've never had an issue at Sand Hills, and this year we didn't have an issue in Oak Island, but like Oak Island had two crowds over, one crowd was 3,000 people, one crowd was like 2,500.
So this would have a grass infield?
Yeah.
Nice. Here's my other question. Boys and Girls Club is eventually going to be across the street. Have y'all talked to, or what? YMCA, excuse me. I'm got it confused. Have you talked to them, or they kind of know about what might be happening here?
I haven't. Now, there's other partners with the team. Robert Bortons, he's one of the partners. Eric Sharon, he lives in West End. Our GM has a small ownership stake, so maybe one of them has.
There just might be some neat partnership opportunities or to.
We do work with the Boys and Girls Club, so I would imagine Jay is more the hands-on operational partner, and so I would imagine that he maybe has already reached out to them.
We didn't want to get out ahead of council, and so this was why, once we were comfortable that the logistics could work, then you guys were the next step, and so.
And so there's
I
no
think
decision from us today, just to.
No,
just
I mean, really,
information.
the decision is if you're okay with 10 years minimum and the understanding that they have to be able to sell alcohol as long as they follow state laws and those types of requirements, then we'll continue with an agreement that addresses these other needs. If you're not comfortable with that today, then,
And I guess
that's the answer they need.
you said in the packet, similar to sort of the ask of the farmer's market thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to open this assumed right, Pandora's box of sorts, and you told us that that ask was very unique. I think you said this one would be similar to where
Yes.
it's not like somebody could say, they get the alcohol, so I get it at, my yard sale.
Correct.
Okay.
We could write the text amendment to the Code of Ordinances very specific to Armory Field. It could be very specific to their use.
Similar to the way that we did it for the farmer's market.
Exactly.
Is that what you said? Okay.
And
It was very specific to farmers markets, so, yeah.
too many questions. Craig, as the Parks and Rec director, you feel comfortable that you're not going to lose opportunity or field space to where you're supportive of going forward as well?
In the microphone.
All right, I think I'm good. No, I think we're good. I think the biggest concern is, I call them square sports, right? So the soccers and the rugbies of the world that are in the outfield, currently moving those to Hines Park will free up a ton of space. I mean, what we'll do is we'll dedicate that space now to just baseball or softball. If we're able to move that, you think of, right now we have travel soccer that's occurring in the outfield of Optimus Park, because it's the only other field that has lights, right? So now I've got a field that has lights. I can put them there, and any overflow from, say, our fall league or our spring league can actually go on a baseball field that's dedicated to that. And Alec and I have been having conversations back and forth for a while now, and I sent him every single rental program date that we had for the entire 2024 year, and he went through and looked at that and did a practice schedule, temporary schedule that looked at how it matched their current one. And the way the timing works out, most of their practices occur what would be before ours, number one, because they're, being a college type team, they're able to practice in the middle of the afternoon. And then on the nights that we would need it, we would still have access to this for baseball and softball. The logistics of it actually ended up working out better. I thought there would be a huge conflict and he would be limited and we would be limited, but the way the timing of the leagues work out, with theirs mostly being summer and ours being fall and spring, it actually worked out pretty well. There's a small overlap there at the beginning and end of our spring season, beginning of our fall season, where there might be a week or two where we need to just really work closely on their planning portion, where maybe they have all away games the first week or two, so that way we don't have any overlap. But we've talked through most of that, and yeah, I don't think so.
We also like that this partnership would give us the ability to bring other tournaments and things like that on the weekends and further activate.
Right.
I think that's a wonderful enhancement to the community. And
Hold the mic, please. Let me ask you a follow-up question. And that is, have you done the measurements at Hines Park to know whether or not there would be a regulation field? You're talking about marking off Hines Park. I know that's a topography adventure over there, and we fought pretty hard to have a regulation size basketball court. I would like to show the same energy and interest at Hines Park as far as making sure that was a standard soccer field that could be used.
well,
Are we
it's
okay?
not a standard soccer field now. So we already have a recreation
Are we
field
okay?
out there.
And we really are standard. We are per regulation. If we wanted to have a soccer game there, we could do it.
Well, we don't do soccer games here, so we're not
Have lights.
we're
and we
not
did-
trying to replicate soccer fields.
Okay, what is our plan?
Our plan is that we have 6 soccer fields across the street.
Right.
And so that is the only place that we host soccer games.
Okay, and I'm trying to listen carefully to everybody's perspective, and I thought I heard set up a field where rugby, soccer could practice. Did I hear that? Is that just a
Yes.
practice field?
Well, I think they have different
Now
sizes.
they're using a baseball outfield, so
it-
they have no standard
Right.
field at all.
So is it a
This is an
practice field? It would become a practice field with light, but it's not regulation size, or it is, or just,
Think about our soccer leagues that we have now.
Right.
So the only thing that Parks and Rec offers is what we call little tyke soccer. So 4 and 5-year-olds. So it's only a 20 wide by 40 long field. So
is where the team moves as an amoeba. I'm
yes.
familiar with that,
So
right?
we don't actually run full-size soccer
Okay.
within Parks and Rec now. All full-size soccer occurs across the street at Southern Pines Park. So we're not even touching
So that's not
full-size
your
fields.
intent.
Yep.
Okay.
So the intent is the ones that are happening in the outfield because they're smaller and they can fit in the outfield, to be honest, are the ones that would go then to Hines Park.
And we're also not talking at Hines Park about moving earth where there's that okay. So we're not going to have a sedimentation issue into the swimming pool.
We already have a park, we already have a field there. All
No, I
we're
got you.
talking
That's fine.
about is
I'm just,
installing lights.
I have a lot of questions. That was my first one. My second one is, are you related to Trace?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. My third one is, there are stipulations as far as general statute, or maybe it's federal statute, about the lighting and the base having approved that. And Mac, you and I have talked about this before. The lighting that would go in would have to be approved by Fort Bragg. Has anybody considered that yet, or is that an issue that needs to be considered?
Are you talking about the new lights at Hines Park?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking about the new lights at Hines
New
Park?
lights, right.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I mean, anytime we install any type of lights, we would go through any type of regulatory compliance.
Next. Mac has-
Distance requirement. BJ, do you remember what the distance requirement is for the base to get
All
approval
on
rights?
Notifications of zoning matters, but just the installation of lights, I'm not sure what, the state statute that I'm familiar with is regarding notification with regard to any zoning or subdivision matters.
Was it state or federal? Sorry, was it state or federal that you and I talked about before, Mac?
I don't remember.
I don't either, and I have that written down someplace, so.
I'll go look it up.
All of these
It
developments too,
does,
right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, it does.
Discussion tonight, so we'll make note of that question.
If we
and
could,
we'll
yeah, if
follow
we
it
could
up.
have that question addressed, that'd be great. My next question is for you. Parking, how many people normally attend the games at Sand Hills?
Average around 400. This year was light because they had every game but 2 of them either rained it or they got rained out.
Okay.
It was the worst summer.
You don't want that.
No,
right,
no,
but
no.
We all live through that too.
Yeah, so I would imagine crowds are going to eventually get to 750 to 800 on average. But you're going to have crowds like last year's opening day had 1,500 people at it. This year's opening day got rained out, so I'm not sure what it would have
And
been like.
everybody's thought in regard to parking? 1,500 people is a lot of people.
I'm
No, it's
sorry.
okay.
No, you can, yeah, I want to hear your input.
No,
I wanna
yeah,
hear your input.
we had discussed it, so I think you can probably answer it or staff can.
But-
Yeah, I was gonna say. So again, with the timing of the schedule, so you think about all the chaos that happens out there currently on Saturday mornings, right?
Right,
That's not going to overlap with this. So we will actually have
the whole soccer
exactly
complex.
most of the year, not the whole time. Like I said, there'll be an overlap during their sort of their peak season where there'll be a few weeks front end, back end where. AC Sandhill still has their league going, our league's going, and we might have to work logistically with Alec to time out some of that scheduling to work to alleviate some pressure. But for the most part, during the games that they're having, because they're mostly, like he said, in June and July, we generally have those fields shut down anyways. So the parking's actually available across
Is
the
the
street.
parking at the soccer complex approximately like 200 spaces? I'm just guessing. Does anybody know? At the soccer complex?
The other thing that we've discussed is, adding additional parking there near the water tower. But they have also discussed, if they need to, they use shuttle services in
Right.
other locations. And
Okay.
if that's a need.
So maybe use Pinecrest parking lot at night and bring in shuttles
We
from
haven't
there.
discussed a specific lot, but
Right.
if we had the wonderful problem of them growing that big, then
Be exciting.
they'd
Yeah.
be ready to, provide
Okay.
some supplementary.
Your notation, Ms. Roth, concerns me, and I appreciate that you've come to us to get feedback, and I'm all in, particularly if you can give me a Kershaw on the Mound moment at some point. Thank you very much. But the word potential future capital projects, in the same way that I don't want you to ever feel like you've been burned by us, I want to make sure that that potential translates into a definite improvement to the facilities, which I think if you have 1,500 people, your hands are going to be kind of tied. You're going to have to do it. I understand the problem there. So that's exciting. And then my last question is, I remember there's a covenant that runs with the land in regard to the YMCA, and there are issues about how we could use it, and I think this all falls within that. I'm sure you guys have researched that. What would be the restrictions in regard to parking? And I don't think we could pave anything over. I think that would fly in the face recreationally, but I'm not sure. So tell
So
me.
that's the section of my memo that talks about the LWCF restrictions. What you're correctly remembering is that we received a grant back in the early 1970s for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that is specific to Armory Field. The restrictions that follow with that grant is that it's used for outdoor recreation.
Right.
And so Greg has actually had some conversations with his contacts at the state about this particular question, and they don't have any concerns because they consider, it's really just a continuation. We already have an outdoor baseball, softball field.
Right.
And so if there was any accessory parking additions, that supports the outdoor recreation. Where we ran into the concerns with the YMCA was they were going to be installing buildings there.
So
And so that would have
enclosed, right.
decreased the outdoor recreation.
Okay.
So
Okay, great. So everybody's checked that out. Great. Can't wait. Thanks.
All right, is anyone uncomfortable with the Bogies request to use the field, a 10-year term, or potential alcohol sales? Well, I guess not just potential, but alcohol sales on that space? No.
No.
Okay. Staff continue. We look forward to seeing how it all works out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it'd be really neat. All right, we have ATM Jessica Roth and I guess James Mickle. There you are, James.
yes, Town Engineer James Mickle's going to talk about this request. A little bit of a unique situation here, so he's going to explain some of the nuances and the recommendation that he and Attorney McCarley have come up with.
Yeah, hey, BJ, can you pull up the map? This one? Yep.
Read your mind.
Okay. Just to get everybody oriented, this is the end of East New York Avenue. There's a house right there at the corner of Ridge in New York. On the opposite side of that house, that is the back parking lot of the Montessori school. Yep, so that other side of the Montessori, BJ. Yep, so go down there, go past Ridge. So from Ridge southward, that's the section of the road that we're looking at. So this started when the property owner that owns the lot there on the left side of the screen, he had called in and actually had called Mac directly and said, hey, I've got an issue. People come down to the dead end, realize it's a dead end, don't know how to turn around, and they just pull into my driveway and turn around. I would like to install a gate to prevent people from doing that, which got us talking about it because normally the town's answer would be, no, we don't typically allow fences, signs, especially not gates or things like that to be installed within town right-of-ways. But we looked at it, we were having discussion with staff, myself, Mr. McCarley, our street superintendent, we were looking at it and, we do try to accommodate people where we can. So we looked at this and we said, all right, look, this is a dead end road. The end of it is another privately owned parcel. There's no real feasible way to extend this road at some point in the future. It's very lightly traveled, minimum width. Utilities are not an issue. They're tucked, basically right up against the road. They're not spread out to the far extents. So we looked at it and we said, okay, well, we don't really want to set the precedent and start allowing encroachments into the right of way, but we also recognize in this particular instance, it may not be, the end of the world. So we came up with an option, and we wanted to run it by council tonight to see what your feelings were on it, is, we could reduce the width of the right of way that would allow enough room for those gates to go in a manner that actually, functions. Because if we said, hey, you can install the gates, but you have to be outside the right of way, they're basically right up there next to the house, as you can see in the survey. I don't think they would really serve the purpose that he was hoping for.
And you don't think that a sign that just says dead end would deter people from driving down the road?
We've put up all kinds of signs and all kinds of cases all over the town, and people have a tendency to just not read them.
To say yield. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on why we would even want to keep that whole section of New York Avenue? Do we have a lot of utilities in there?
There are some utilities. There's actually a fairly significant water main comes up through that driveway on the parking lot.
Through the school?
Through the school, comes down towards Ridge Street and then goes up Ridge Street. And then we did talk about that. It's like, could you just release all of the right of way? But the issue is you have 3 separate property owners, including the one at the end, and you might create an awkward situation where,
Right.
If you follow the standard abandonment procedure, the right of way is split to the people on the sides. The guy at the end may potentially lose access.
Right.
And that, we definitely didn't want to be in that position either.
So looking at BJ's, can you show me exactly where the fence would be on the picture?
I can't show you exactly, but I can
Okay.
give you an idea. Kind of right about in there.
Okay.
And it might be a little bit further back depending on the actual measurement, but that's kind of his goal, was to get it up close to
Okay.
where his
All right.
neighbors are.
Thank you.
Just that homeowner's another driveway looks like right next to it. They
Right.
haven't said anything.
No, we haven't received any complaints from them.
I have no issue with this.
I want to look at Mac. I don't think we actually need an action from council, or do we need a vote?
We will need one, but it's not on for tonight. Okay.
Thank you for the heads up before it comes to us.
All right.
So I think you have more
Yeah,
to tell
I'm
us.
sticking around.
Can we have a brief break? Can we have a 10-minute break? Thank you.
Let's do an 8-minute break. We'll be back at 4:45.
And so it's something I could see myself, like,
Hello? Okay.
getting us back there.
I'm going to go ahead and call us back to order. We're still missing one of our, oh, no, there she is. Okay. Oh. James, thank you again for being here. I hear you have some general stormwater discussion.
Yep, I'll keep this fairly brief. So we've heard recently that the town may be looking at becoming what is called a regulated MS4. MS4 just stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And basically what's occurring, the same urbanization designation that kind of triggered the MPO discussion and started that off. The EPA also uses that same designation, and that has kind of kicked us, the town of Southern Pines, into being looked at as a regulated entity. If you'll notice, I have no presentation on this because this is still very informal. There's lots more information to come. But, with becoming a regulated entity, there does come responsibilities, there does come requirements that would have impacts on staff, cost, resources. So we kind of wanted to put that out there, get your kind of creative juices flowing, be aware of it, because we don't want to be sitting here at budget time next year being the first time you've ever heard about this.
Yeah, just to clarify for anybody on the council, Bill and I attended the Tri-City meetings this afternoon, and this whole discussion has already happened once today. So, yeah, it sounds like it can be a good thing because it's managing stormwater, but it also sounds like it's going to be just one more responsibility that the town will need staff to cover. And then Tri-Cities, they offered to help us kind of navigate this new process.
They offered to kind of get us in touch with some other entities that have gone through this process. They have some paperwork for some like the community communication thing. So not that they're really going to help us guide through the process, but they had some resources available.
What's the timeline on so how long does it potentially take? And then when do you give us updates on if it's actually happening?
Yeah. So, I'll actually be attending the APWA, American Public Works Association Stormwater Conference, Monday and Tuesday next week. I do expect to catch up with some of the regulators there, just to, again, continue to ask them prying questions. But the real, when things will start happening, will likely be early 2026. The first formal action that is taken is the DEQ staff will take a draft candidate list to the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission. The Environmental Management Commission will then vote on that candidate list, and if the town remains on that list, that's kind of the official go.
Okay.
At that point, we now have to start communicating with the state. We start formulating the plans. And that's probably a 3 to 4 month process to come up with the plan, and the plan is simply, here's how we're going to implement things. Once we're done with that, we will become again, if it happens, we would become a permitted MS4. The first permit cycle, which is a 5-year timeline, is the amount of time we have to actually implement the plan.
Help me out, y'all. Was this designated to us, or did we request this,
I think
or?
designated to us
It's
because of
designated.
the size we are.
Per Jane's comment, my understanding is some of it may require additional staff or additional resources that come budget will require us to take some hard looks at, okay, here's what we need and how are we going to pay for it. We don't know what that is yet, but that could be coming as part of this.
Or if we're officially on the list,
Yeah.
which we still don't know. Okay. It's a lot of unknowns. Yeah. I appreciate the heads up, but short of actually knowing what's happening,
We really just wanted we didn't want you all to hear from other people that were on these lists at these conferences. So we wanted to be the ones to inform you that there's a decent chance this is coming, and it would be something different budget-wise and something that would have an ongoing impact. So we'll continue to keep you updated, but that was really just, kind of your first heads up.
Thanks, James.
Pluses? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No.
No, please.
No, I was just going to say, are there any pluses? I'm hearing the possibility of more monies that we may have to spend in terms of personnel or whatever, but are there any pluses to this since we're going to be, I guess, connecting with the state?
I think stormwater management might be good for us to be actively engaged in.
We have dedicated employees to stormwater management that we don't specifically have right now.
Yeah, we don't currently have, and there would be certain things that we don't typically look at that we would now be required to. So, like I said, it's absolutely a cost, but it's not all negative.
And the distinction is based on population? Yeah. And are we considered a population, like a megalopolis with Aberdeen and Pinehurst?
Yeah, it's the 2020 census
Okay.
urbanized area designation that was assigned to Southern Pines, Pinehurst, Aberdeen,
Right.
Parts of Foxfire, which, everything that was the MPO.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we are our own permitting agency?
Nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Also, can I just add one thing?
Yeah, of
While
course.
it's sort of the same topic, saves me from doing it roundtable. We did have the MS4 discussion today, but we also did ask, just because all three towns, consensus that stormwater in general has been like the most common, frequent, hate to say complaint, but issue of late. And so we asked the council to just see what other area municipalities are doing as far as their minimums and how just other towns outside of our area are dealing with stormwater and requirements, just to get an idea.
By council, you're talking about Tri-Cities?
Yeah,
Okay, great. Are the
I get
grand poobah of
yeah, the
Tri-Cities?
acronym's wrong, but the CR.
Thank you.
I spelled them all out for you, though.
Yeah. Thank you. We love acronyms. Thank you.
Lindsay Whitson works for.
Thank you.
CP.
Yep, thanks, James. Okay, planning department update. That would be Director Grieve, correct?
That is correct. Very briefly, I want to let the town council know that we had an experience in our office where our applications and application materials that are posted online, a very sophisticated AI tool was scraping the information off the application form, some type of optical character recognition, scraping as much information, processing it, and then kicking out automatic scams that went to the applicants, asking for them to pay a fee and wire the money to the Planning Commission. This is an example of one right here. Like I said, it's because the application materials are posted online in advance of the planning board meeting. And so those documents, they can read them, figure out where to send it to. And so we've taken, they read strangely, which a lot of AI stuff does, which is good because people get it and they go, Grieve BJ, he wouldn't sign his name Grieve BJ. That seems odd. So see at the bottom, Grieve, BJ, director, yeah. And so, and there's just a few little indicators. We've gotten some others where members of the team have received an email from me asking them to please give them give me their cell number so I can call them wherever they are. Yeah, and it's signed Grieve BJ. So I wanted to let the town council know we did two things. Number one is we worked with Courtney to post this online. To let everybody know that this was going on. It appears to be related to applicants that are online, so it's not sort of like a broad community scam of any sort.
We can't pay for building permits with gift cards anymore.
Right, you can't do that with gift cards. That's unfortunate. We also went ahead and we have updated on the advice of MAC, rather than going out there and figuring out a way to put less information online, which comes at the cost of less informed public. So how do you deal with this? What we're going to do is we've gone through at MAC's recommendation, we've updated all of our application forms for all of our types of development approvals with a scam alert to let folks know that there's this possibility. So we're letting folks know. That's one. In terms of October Town Council, I wanted to let the Town Council know that we have Clark Street townhomes coming that went to Planning Board. And then coming out of Planning Board, it was continued administratively by the applicants in order to rework some stuff. You've seen that project before. It's been approved before, but it's coming back to change the density. We have a PDP out in the corporate park for a business called Veterans Guardian. They want to develop a headquarters out there in the corporate park. And then we have an architectural review for a Mercedes-Benz charging station at Cafe Boku, the new restaurant that is on US 1, used to be the Barn restaurant. They want to put up a vehicle charging station in a way that does not comply with our architectural code, is more consistent with their architecture for Mercedes. So they want town council approval of deviations. And finally, third of three things, I just wanted to mention that we had a great meeting with the planning board. After the last planning board meeting, it was a discussion about what the planning office does, because the planning board doesn't get much of a window into stuff except for that which comes before them. And so they had this impression that was all we did. And I had a really enlightening conversation with one of the members of the planning board where I said, we say no to a lot of things that come in each day. And he said, you do? And I thought, oh my gosh. And since that time, I've had a number of conversations with people where I've said, did you know that we turn away a lot of stuff? And they said, wow, I wouldn't have guessed that, because it seems like everything's changing so fast and so many projects are going. I just assumed you say yes to everything. So that's interesting. So we actually ran some numbers, and we say on a routine basis, this diagram right here, this is kind of visualization of our process for current planning. We get ideas, concepts, all kinds of things come in, and we call them feasibility inquiries, and we route them to the appropriate planner. Out of this comes workable ideas that go to a pre-application meeting. We do about 8 to 1 in terms of what ideas come in. 7 out of every 8 ideas never make it to a pre-app. They get turned away. So 1 out of 8 gets to a pre-app, and we do about 40 pre-apps in a year. Now, this is for commercial inquiries. This isn't somebody calling and saying, hey, I want to build a fence, what's my setback, that type of stuff. This is for stuff that would go to pre-apps. So we average about just over 1 a day on inquiries for some type of commercial development that would go to a pre-app. And that's an 8 to 1 ratio. And I wanted to share that because I think as a talking point, I think a lot that people just, wow, you do? That means there's that much more stuff that actually wants to develop. So then the rest of this, I think you've seen this diagram before about the process from here, how it gets routed to either zoning entitlement or by right use, and then on to site plan, architecture review, building permits, et cetera, through to construction. Those are the 3 things. That's all I have.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good.
Thank you, Director Grieve. All right, do you all have any questions for planning staff? No? All right, seeing none, we'll open up to roundtable. Okay, Ann, do you have anything?
I do. So at the mayor's direction, after bringing up the issue on transportation concerned with the transportation that is available to people who are without cars, she asked me to go to the county commissioners meeting, which I did do. And also Reagan sent me paperwork which sort of reiterated what I also knew, but I have also followed up with people actually using the system, and it's more cumbersome than I thought, in that not only do you have to get online, whether you have Wi-Fi or not, you have to get online to order your $4 token to be able to travel, but then you have to either go to Carthage to pick up your token, or you have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope that your tokens would be mailed back to you in. So it is about as cumbersome as we could possibly make it. And I am going to try to talk with Tom Adams about my concern. But I don't anticipate that that's going to get changed readily. And I would love to keep that issue alive. I think it's really important. I think it's a huge member of our community, our portion of our community that's using the service. It is incredibly cumbersome to reuse that word for the 3rd time, I think. But number one, I'd love to see those of you involved with MPO try to have some funding available to extend the hours. When the service shuts down at 5 o'clock and somebody has a 3:40 doctor's appointment and they don't get done in time, then they're having to try to figure out some way to call a friend to come pick them up because they've missed their ride home because that shuts down. There's no transportation on the weekends. The system is impossible for people who are living at or below the poverty line, who don't have Wi-Fi, who are being told, get on your Wi-Fi and go order your tokens and now go to the post office and get your stamps to send a self-addressed stamped envelope. And I think it's a very real issue that we could have a big impact with a very little bit of money from our budget to support the people who are within Southern Pines. I think it would be a generous and kind gesture. I also understand, and this is not our issue, but and this is probably a question for Reagan, maybe for Jessica. I'm hearing from constituents who often know more than I do, and sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not, that the solution on May Street coming from the Montessori school, going to May Street and turning left on Indiana, everybody with me? That traffic gets really backed up because there's an enormous strain on that intersection because a lot of people are turning left to go out Indiana to the base. And what this constituent told me she was concerned about was she has heard that they were going to try to do a turn lane. And I said, that's actually not within our venue. I mean, that's a DOT question, but it seems like you could first try a light that was green for both turning and going straight on the lane heading out of town toward Aberdeen, and then have it green the other direction, and then have it green the final direction. And the same, I mean, it seems like our DOT is going to spend a lot of unnecessary money and dig up the front of Brownson Church probably in order to have a turn lane. So if that's the truth, which maybe James can tell me whether or not it is the truth.
It's an NCDOT issue.
It is a DOT, and I understand that, but I think that if we could ask for, can we try first with a light that actually lets people turn left and go straight, and then lets people come from the other direction, because they could obviously turn right on red, and then come in.
The two things, I was in that meeting when they talked about it, and it's part of I think that the transportation improvement plan that they're currently looking at, and the two options, they don't have a solution yet. But the two options that they were going to review was a turn lane
Right.
or a roundabout.
How about none of the above? How about a light that does the job for us?
Well, I mean,
It's such a cheap try. Let's try it.
there is a light.
There is a light, but a light that gives you a left turn and a straight go from the direction coming from Brownson toward Aberdeen.
So it's on the prioritized list of things for NCDOT
Study.
to study, yeah.
Yeah.
So that will be, I'm sure they'll come up with options. Right now, they don't have options. Turn lane has not been discussed, light has not been discussed. They just,
And roundabout has not been, but
They just threw them out as potential options. And I mean,
such a practical, let's try this first. You understand what I'm saying? though?
I don't understand how the light would work, but
I would like to go down
I might
there
have
with
to
you.
draw it
I will-
on the whiteboard.
I
But
will go meet you at that corner and show you.
so if you're coming down Indiana,
You're coming down May Street, thank you.
south.
You're coming
Yeah.
May Street from Montessori, you're coming toward,
Yeah.
let's draw.
okay, I got you. So you turn.
oh, okay, let's actually stay
I
on,
got
no, I agree. I mean, I'm happy we're having the discussion, but I also think that we have gone from council roundtable into commissioner meeting and NCDOT meeting, and I think it's a great topic to talk to the
Right.
NCDOT about, and I don't know
But
that we can solve it.
But in my defense, regarding commissioners meeting, that is what you instructed me to do, and I
Yeah,
have
I
done
agree.
that, and
I
I'm back
agree.
to you. So thank you
agree.
for that. And as to DOT,
I'm just saying it's,
it's
you're asking us to solve a DOT problem that there are engineers who
really
have-
practical solution.
And they haven't actually even started on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just
Okay, let's fix it.
looking at.
Okay. I'll go ahead and go through me. There is a traffic circle meeting. I'm looking for the exact date because it got changed a bunch of times. Does anyone know it off the top of their head? October 27th, 26th? Do you all know? Okay, well, I have October 28th, 3 to 7 p.m. But they will put the public announcement out. It's going to be at the Fair Barn if anyone is interested.
No.
I got a letter from the North Carolina League of Municipalities just thanking us for the work that we do and offering services. If anybody would like a copy of the letter, Carrie has one. I've been told that there's sand spurs in the grass at Whitehall, and if we're having stuff out there, if there's anything that we can do to make it more usable. And I'm meeting with the master planner, the Director Grieve of Fort Bragg. I'm meeting with him tomorrow. I will report back on whatever news he has to tell me. But hopefully he's coming to the DOT meeting as well. I mean, yes, MPO meeting at some point. That's all I have right now.
Did you go?
You did.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
Okay, I've got just two quick things. First, want to give a shout out to Jessica. She's the spotlight employee at our communications department. Does this Tuesday shout out fancy video, which is fantastic. Go watch it if you haven't. She's it right today. So go check it out. It's, Matt Mason was it, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago from planning department. Second, y'all may not know, or maybe y'all know from your meetings, there's just been orange barrels and that's it for a long time. What's the update on the Midland Road fix from US 1 up to Clark Street?
I don't have a current update. I know that that is certainly a near-term plan where, and what Mayor Pro Tem Pate is referring to is they're going to be resurfacing Midland Road from US 1 towards downtown. And where it's currently a 4-lane, 2 lanes in either direction, they're going to be changing that to 1 lane with a bike lane. I suspect that with all of their work following the storm, perhaps that's gotten delayed a little bit, but we can definitely check and get you an update.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, just wonderful birthday celebration at the library, and council was in attendance, except for one council person, but he was busy. And I was grateful to bring one of my students with me to just show her a different side of town. Be surprised how little some people are exposed to certain things, and so she enjoyed it. She loved it, and I had an opportunity to go to one of the Rotary meetings and just with Councilperson Goodman, and it's always just good to mingle in as Councilwoman Peterson always says, our constituents. These are the people that we represent, and to be around them, to hear from them, to interact, and sometimes conversation can come up and you'll discover things that you didn't know or things that you didn't think people cared about or whatever. And so, yeah, that's it. Just some good times in the community.
You provided the segue for me to go further off base. I just want to take notice at this point that Bill Pate's birthday is October 18th.
Are we sure about that?
And we are positive, and we
Make
need
sure
to
it's
be
on my
on
calendar.
task this year.
Thank you
Yeah.
for saying that, Ann.
October
Thank you.
18th. This is an
October,
important
I'm putting
day.
it-
Happy birthday every month.
That's right.
All
And with
right.
that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Very good. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. I will see you all in October.